In this episode of Museums Without Borders, we partner with the Mehrangarh Museum Trust and look at two objects, an intricately designed hilt from Mehrangar's collection and a fire striker from Map's collection, each of which contain very similar zoomorphic or animal imagery. Before the invention of phosphorus matches, fire strikers played an important role as a means of igniting fires. Strikers were usually made of steel and were struck by a piece of flint stone to produce sparks. While serving a functional purpose, some strikers also contained beautifully designed animal imagery, such as the heads of dragons, examples of which we see in strikers from Safavid, Iran.
For more than 500 years, military might has been the mainstay of Rathore dominance in the region of Jodhpur Marwar. The history of the Mehrangar Armory, as Dr. Robert Elgood remarks, is inevitably also the history of the people who use these arms. Rajputs primarily perceived themselves as warriors. They believed weapons to be extensions of their limbs. Swords were therefore revered as objects of great ritual and ceremonial importance. We have in Mehrangar's collection here a Shikarshahi hilt that dates back to 1880. While most of the weapons in the Mehrangar Armory were purchased or commissioned, others were acquired in war or gifted in exchange. From the 16th century onwards, Jodhpur rulers actively engaged with the Mughals. This infused cosmopolitanism into the royal aesthetics of Jodhpur, evident in the various hilt and blade styles. As such, prominent Rajputs continued to buy, commission, and exchange arms into the 20th century. However, arms manufacture in the 19th and 20th century was mostly for ceremonial use. These were opulent ornaments, as this Shikarshahi hilt, in contrast to the hardy rustic swords taken to war.
On this side, we have a fire striker from Map's collection. We are not exactly sure where it originates from, but we speculate that it is perhaps Deccani or Rajput from roughly the 18th century. The Deccan Plateau, situated in south-central India, produced some of the finest works of art from the 16th to 18th centuries. It was also marked by a confluence of different cultural strands. The migration of Central Asian Turks to India in the 13th and 14th century brought Persian culture to the region. And later, the Mughal conquest of the Deccan brought with it the imperial Mughal aesthetic, resulting in a melding of cultures reflected in the art and architecture produced in the region. As scholar Navina Haidar notes, metaphor and symbolism played an important role in Deccani paintings and the arts. The incorporation of animal imagery within objects, drawn from Indian and Persian sources, reflected both royalty and power. This striker, for example, features what appears to be a tiger or a lion's head emerging from the terminal, its jaws open, clutching what is possibly a deer who leaps forward, attempting to escape.
Like the striker from Map's collection, this hilt also features various animal forms. Over the knuckle guard, we see a makara biting a hare, tiger heads and the quillons. The blued steel hilt has a design of played gold flowers and foliage. Details of the makara, hare and tiger heads are also highlighted, and the animals have green and red foil-backed paste eyes. Swords were made by a specialized and skilled group of people known as sikligars or swordsmiths. This blade has a deep fuller and cutaway spine, a late 19th century detail. The inlaid cartouches mark a maker's name, Asadullah. It is without a nisba, which points to Khorasan as the place of manufacture.
While the sword bears the name of its maker, the maker for the striker is left unidentified. However, as Krishna mentioned, cosmopolitanism is also reflected in the aesthetics of Deccani art, as you can see in this striker. The arches seen below in the striker bear some resemblance to ogee arches, an arch with a pointed apex. Though ogee arches are found around the world, particularly in Gothic architecture, some scholars suggest that it had its origins in the Islamic world. The depiction of animals interlocked in combat is a common feature in artworks and objects from the Deccan. Animal fables, found both in India and the Middle East, were known in the Deccan, and it is therefore possible that artists were drawing on such traditions in their depictions. Moreover, sultans and rulers also identified themselves with predatory felines, such as tigers and lions. Tigers were also used as symbols of Ali, a central figure in Shiism, and were also later co-opted by the famous ruler of Mysore, Tipu Sultan.
Much like the ship of Theseus, Indian arms should be seen as component parts rather than a single object. The Mehrangar Silekhana inventory reflects that blade and hilt were often not from the same time period. The reason is simple. Blades were forged to last, even as over time many hilts would find their way to crown them. Importantly, how does one identify this replacement? A new hilt is often improperly mounted on the blade, as is commonly observed in most Indian collections. Dr. Elgood notes that the case is similar with the Victoria and Albert Museum collection as well as the Wallace collection.
Consequently, if we look at other objects produced in the Deccan, such as this hilt from the Metz collection, we see similar zoomorphic imagery. The hilt features a dragon attacking a lion, who in turn attacks a deer. We also see a parrot-like bird with a snake in its beak, as well as the head of a yali. The image of a tiger attacking a deer, as Navina Haider states, was a long-standing Persian Islamic hunting motif, and the use of such imagery conveyed messages of power and dominance. Moreover, a number of arms and armor in Rajput collections were also acquired from campaigns in the Deccan in the 17th and 18th century. It is therefore possible that this striker was captured from the Deccan. So there you have it, two objects that serve different purposes but are nevertheless united through their imagery and a blending of aesthetics.